things are going to look a little cluttered right at the start, but I'll explain everything that's going on. So, um, first off, I will go over to here and just get it running. Okay, I'm going to assume that it's back from the ad if there was an ad. I'm not sure. But you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, I believe it's, yeah, there. So you'll see a bunch of numbers popping up. So I'll just explain what this is saying. This is something similar to what you would normally see when I'm running my AI. So there's the generation that we're running on. So I just started this running. So we're on the first generation. It hasn't been stuck because it hasn't had an opportunity to be stuck. And the best scores are extremely high. So this is something that's different because what's happening is I'm attempting to perform a linear regression on an equation that is a random equation that I've assigned as the null value. And so I set the score as extremely high because in linear regression, having a low score means that you're closer to the actual answer. So it's kind of like golf here. We want a lower score. So then you'll see all these numbers counting up. This is simply a indicator that the program is running right now. There are 100 children per generation, so it's simply giving me a number of which child DNA it's working on at the moment. So this will continue to go up and will hit 100, and then it will move on to the next generation after processing that generation a bit. Hopefully, and it's been pretty consistent, you will see a message at the bottom saying new best or new second or possibly both. And so this will give you an indicator that the score has updated, the AI has improved slightly. Now, it will improve no matter what in this situation, simply because pretty much any answer is better, will get a score better than the null value score, which was some god-awful number, tons of zeros. So this is what the screen looks like. And so I've explained what the data mining project does, but this is the first time that it's actually being seen on screen. So I want to kind of go over it again. If you're watching not live and you've heard this before, you can probably skip through a little bit. But basically, what the data mining project is there's a warehouse of data, which is basically just a text file in this case that I've created by having an equation to base it on, having 9 input variables, and randomly assigning numbers to those input variables and popping out an output variable. So that output variable is the 10th number, but it's actually the first number in the data warehouse. That's kind of irrelevant for the description. But okay, so there's 9 input variables, and okay, so we got a crash. I think that has to do with what I was just running. So what I just made as an improvement. So I'm going to try to set this up to run in the debugger window so that we can see that instead. So give me just a second here. And let me see if I can switch this over so that it's showing the debugger. That's what we want. Okay. So here now you should be able to see the debugger window as you could with the other window. Let me just get that over there. Okay. And now I will run it. So this is going to go through again. It says generation 2. I'll probably start it over once I figure out what the problem is. But with the debugger, instead of just closing out, it should pop up with the error message, and I'll be able to fix that pretty quickly. So like I was saying, it has 9 input variables, and so the AI is attempting to randomly use those input variables to create an equation that will provide the output variable to whatever accuracy possible. So it starts out with the equation input variable 9, and so it's just sum output is equal to input variable 9. And the reason I chose this is because input variable 9 is not actually involved in the equation. So anything that is closer to the equation should provide a better score. This was something that I debated in the last stream, because the original null state was the first variable, and the first variable was involved in the equation I used to create the data. So I was wondering if that was causing problems, and I figured I would just remove all uncertainty and change the null state to the 9th input variable. So that is the original equation, but as the genetic AIs go, they have a mutation process. So although originally in the first generation, the mating process will only provide back the 9th input variable as the equation, the mutation process has a possibility of 1, changing that variable to a different variable, 2, creating a new variable altogether with the deep learning aspect, or 3, extending the shape of the DNA into a compound variable, which could be something like input variable 9 plus input variable 8. So that would be a slightly more complex equation that could later be filled out with the correct variables if that matched the equation. So there's those options for mutation, and as those mutations earn a better score, which in this case would be a lower score, they will propagate into the future generations by becoming the new best DNA set. So these DNA sets are then used for the mating process in the next generation. So hopefully when this comes to 100, we will either see the generation propagate through, or B, get the error message and I'll be able to fix that. I think it's probably just some sort of syntax error, but I could be wrong on that. So what's going on the screen? I have obviously the Python shell open so that you can see the text popping up, and I also have a paint window. So it's saying that the variable that has popped up was an integer and not an array. So that is a problem. Okay, so let me pull this up. This may be something that I have to do off stream, but I will attempt to glance over it. If there's any questions while I'm looking at this, please post them in the chat so that I can answer those. But it's saying that the input into the if statement, which was the lengths of the arrays, is 0. So I'm trying to figure out. It says object type length int has no length. So then if I go to that line, it is 775. That's in the okay. And so the thing that it's showing here is that those two variables, old DNA and new DNA, should be arrays. So they should hold the data of the array. But I'm not sure if I was correct in doing this the way I did it. So okay. Yeah, this is what I was doing wrong. So I need to go in and actually go change the I think it should be the elements of that score should be put in. But okay, yeah. All right. So that's the problem. So you'll see in the line here. I'm not sure if you can actually see my. Okay, so you can see if I highlight it in this line. This uh, best index 1 is actually not what I need to put in. It is I need to have elements best index 1, because this best index 1 is just telling me the index of what I need to check here, or of what I need to plug in, because there's another variable array elements, which is actually the DNA structure that I need to plug in. So that should be something that is a problem in all of these, and I will just go through and fix that. But so I was describing the data mining project. Like I said, I've described it a lot in other streams, so if you want more in-depth discussion about that, please go check out other streams. I will put a link, or I believe I can put a little icon up in the top that will link you to the actual playlist for that project. So, all right. Now that this is running, let's see if this improved the process of it. And okay, so now it's running. It says the 3rd generation up on the screen here, but it, like I said, this is something that I can reset when I'm ready to. But okay, sorry about that. Obviously, with a new project, there's always going to be problems. That's actually one of the adjustments I just made a couple, like 30 minutes before starting the stream, so there was unexpected problems with that. But I have had other runnings of this project which were somewhat unsuccessful, so I just want to talk about why they were unsuccessful and what I've done to change those. So I'm going to, okay, the mouse is going crazy on the screen. This happens when I run the shell. For some reason, OBS doesn't like grabbing onto that window, so I'm just going to try and see if it'll go away. No, it won't. Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that I fixed this problem, so I'm actually going to rerun this in the regular executable window, like it was in the previous part of the stream. So I'm going to grab this and set it to that. Okay. Let me just fix the window. I'm sorry for the lack of professionalism here. This is something that you deal with when working on projects that are new. So this should be a little more friendly to the eye. Okay, there we go. And I'm actually going to pull that out a little bit so that you can see it a little better. So there we go. All right, just ignore that white rectangle up at the top. Okay, so we've been having a little bit of problems, but I think that they should be relatively smooth now. So now I want to talk about the changes that I've made to the deep learning data mining project. So originally, the deep learning project had, I was restraining the mutation process, and the reason for this was because the mutation process was creating extremely long equations that were completely left field, had nothing to do with it, and they would cause problems in the actual analysis portion of the running of the program, because when the program would go to test these long equations, they would take a long time to analyze due to the recursive nature of the DNA. So this DNA being recursive. I've talked about this in a stream called Fractal DNA, if you want to check that out. But essentially, each element of the DNA has the possibility of having the same structure as the DNA as a whole, which means that technically it could have an infinite fractal-like structure. But this is something that I have somewhat avoided with a simple fix. And so what I did was I essentially made it so that at any point in time, a mutation can only add 2 more layers to the... Actually, I'm not sure if it's even 2. It might just be 1 more layer. So I have the paint window up here, and so I just want to sort of describe what this means. So if we have a compound element like this, and let's say it's too long, just 1, 1, 1. So this means that the first index variable plus itself is the equation we're working with. A mutation could come along and say that it could decide to mutate this element here. And so it would put another 0 here and make it a compound element. Now, it doesn't always mutate into a compound element. It could mutate into a new variable. It could mutate into a different variable that's already been seen. But this is the process that I was talking about previously. So I'm wondering, because the AI doesn't seem to be running. I think because I clicked on it the way I did, it caused some problems. Like I said, I'm sorry about all of the problems that are going on here, but let me just switch screens and come back, and that should be fixed. Okay, so now the numbers are running. At least it seems that way on my screen, so I will get back to my description. So like I said, it can mutate, so we'll put another, let's just say 2, 2, 2 to make it stand out, and then you would have the final 1, 1 to finish off the DNA. And so this section was added, but when adding an element, these individual elements are randomized. So these elements could become zeros, and those zeros could have zeros within them, and those zeros, and so on, and so on, and so on. And the problem with that is it doesn't necessarily have an ending point. So there's a whole problem with the idea of Turing machines and always having an ending point. But what I did to resolve this is that when the AI goes into adding an element, so there's a function that's defined, add, not and, add lem, and it has some it has some inputs into it, but essentially what it does is it randomly chooses a variable to add into that, and if it's a 0, then it randomly fills out this. But what I did, because at each of these points it calls itself, and so one of the input variables is this variable q, that's a p, it's a q, and I just chose q for the hell of it. I didn't really have a reason for it. But this q actually keeps track of how many layers it is in. So it originally starts at 0, there's no problem. Then it goes to 1, and I believe, so what I did was the variable that it can possibly choose when adding in these variables starts at q and is some random integer from q, that's a gq, to the total. So this is the total variable, and I think it's actually total plus 1, because if it's plus 1 then it can mutate into a deep learning variable. But so what this q is that if the layer it's on is 1, then it can't create a new layer, and so then it stops there. It creates it puts the new variable in, but it stops at that layer. So what it does is it actually just only adds in 1 new layer to the variable. Now, if this improves the equation, the next time it can add in another layer. And what this does is it means is that as generations go on, extra layers can be added in. It does take out the possibility of randomly guessing the entire equation, but the probability of that is so low that I didn't feel as if it were important to keep that in. There is problems, though, with maybe the process of improving towards the equation, not necessarily creating structures that help out. So we did see on the screen we have a new best, a new second best, and you'll see those scores. I'll get to what those mean in a second. So this was something I did to slow down the rapid mutation process due to the random nature and the possible infinite fractal structure. And so it has been working pretty well. I've also tweaked the mutation factor a little bit. So the mutation factor is it's the number out of 100 that a random number has to be higher than to mutate. So it was 85. That's just an arbitrary number. But for this project, I upped it to 90 because of this problem. Then I realized that the actual chance of mutation wasn't the problem. It was this add-lm function. So I adjusted the function. I've actually since dropped the mutation factor down to 80, simply because I also changed the maximum stuck value. So the stuck value is how many times the AI has been stuck on a certain set of parents. And if it's been stuck previously for 50 generations, then it will kill off the lesser of the parents, creating possibility for a new, possibly better parent to step in. I lowered that value down to 20 simply because I want to see more random learning happening. And so 50 generations was a long time, and I wanted to see, I guess it might be a little bit of impatience on my part, but I think that the overall convergence should be relatively the same. But so this just on the aspect of the risks of doing this, it actually lowers the possibility of getting all of the useful information out of a parent, but it also raises the possibility of gaining new information. So I weighed the risk and reward, and I decided to lower that stuck value down to 20. So those are the major changes that I've made. I actually have a note on my phone, so I want to check to make sure I'm not missing anything. But other than that, I am going to show you what the equations actually look like for these programs. So I'll get that pulled up in a second. But actually, while I'm looking at this, so I fixed the problem with add-lm. I changed the kill value to 20. I adjusted the mutatability. I restricted the compoundness, and I created a translator. So this translator is what is able to show me what these equations look like based off of the DNA structure. So this is in a text file called EQList, and so you'll actually see there's a new second. So the stuck value went back down to 1, and it popped in a new value for the second value as opposed to just the best score. So I'm going to pull up this add-lm EQList, and now this, all right, that is not what I'm looking for. So there's some problems with what's happening on the screen. I'm going to try to minimize this a little bit, but okay. So I guess I just had too much running at the moment. But okay, so you'll see that here, that's very small actually. I don't know if I can make that any bigger, but I can read it to you. So essentially what this is saying, actually, let me buff bump that up a little bit. So let me grab that, and then I'll grab the paint window and overlap it. We don't need it for right now. So basically what this is saying is, so we have this equation here. This is the equation. So this is the null state equation that I was talking about. And this is actually something problematic, because this was what I was trying to fix with the most recent update that we saw the error pop up for earlier. So I was attempting to make it so that equations that have the same DNA did not propagate through with better scores. As you can see with the second, that's something that I'll have to fix when the stream has concluded. But the reason I didn't want to do this is because if that equation has scored worse in the past, I don't want it to be rewarded for a better score that was randomly achieved. I want new equations to be rewarded. So this is what I've been trying to fix. And because actually what I have done is I've run this a slightly previous version of this data mining project pretty much to exhaustion. I ran it for 300 generations and didn't see much improvement. So I'm going to try and pull that up and see if that will show up on the screen. Okay, so it is actually working. So you'll see I had the mutation factor at 90, and I had a couple notes here about what happened. But I can scroll through here. So this was the first generation. It popped in. It actually, through deep learning, created a new variable. This is what... actually, no, this wasn't a variable. This is a compound variable. So this was... It mutated a 0, and it added in a new equation. Now, I think it is actually coincidence that both of these are 9s. But so we can see that it created this equation, and then this equation still is nonsense because, like I said, the 9th input variable is not involved in the equation that was used to create the data. So we can scroll down here, and it was pretty constantly changing, just getting better scores, not changing the equation, which is the problem I'm talking about. And then here, it actually created a deep learning variable and also made it slightly more compound. So this was something I was very happy to see because it proved that the mutation process was working. But it also, now these variables are involved in the process, but this is not the orientation that they are involved in. I'll try and get the equation I actually used available for possibly the next update. If anyone wants to try and remind me of that, go for it, because that would be probably beneficial for the audience to see. But then you can see that 3 generations later, it immediately got rid of that and just put in the previous score just because it got a better score, not because it was a better equation. So here, a new best score came in, a new best equation came in. 6 is also not used in the equation that I was using. But then the 6 began to propagate through because it was randomly getting lucky. And so actually, I believe this was when the stuck value killed the parent. So this parent was actually reset and then immediately changed to the previous thing, because you can actually see that the score went up, which is something that shouldn't happen unless the parent is reset. So it continued with this process, going through resetting, but it didn't ever improve. Here, this is actually decently a decent improvement because the equation is actually better in terms of using variables that were used in the actual equation. But then you can see that almost immediately it got rid of that for another copy of the best equation. So it continued this way, and then it just kept going and kept going and kept going, and that's where I stopped it. Because obviously this isn't learning, it's just getting lucky. So this is something that I've had problems with the ball drop project, and so I need to either adjust the testing function, which I don't think is possible. I think it is running exactly how I want it to be, or I need to adjust a couple things in how it actually handles a new best equation. So possibly by testing it more, or running some extra algorithms in, like I was saying, with removing same equations. So let's go check up on how the AI is doing. I know it's been running next to me, but I haven't really been seeing it. Okay, so it is doing the same error it was previously. And so if I go here, there we go. There's some problem with Chrome being up at the same time. So this Generation 5 is just the one we started on because I restarted it a couple times. But you can see that it isn't learning, it's just getting better scores, and so this is something I need to fix. So obviously the fix that I made was unsuccessful, or unsuccessful, I don't know, I've been mixing up those prefixes lately. But there is progress, and the AI is actually running. It is doing exactly what I'm telling it to. I'm probably just telling it to do something wrong at some point in time. So from here, I think I'm going to just switch and do my random drawing section. So I want to see if I can get this pulled up to where you can see both, possibly. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so we're having a lot of problems with the windows popping up, but there we go. And this code is actually my code that I have written, so I need to switch it up so that it is now running my data mining. Okay, so there we go. It is showing the actual project. Let me just get that so that it's visible on screen. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to attempt to play an ad. I'm not sure if the ads are working, but I'll be right back while I get the paint window set up.